The jungle held its breath. A shriek split the canopy as claws slashed through the silence. A young deer stumbled, its eyes wide with terror. Marcus whispered, "Life is born only to be tested." Branches cracked, predators circled, and the ground seemed to shake beneath their weight. The sun pierced through leaves like blades, yet the shadows swallowed hope whole. Amelia said, "Every heartbeat could be the last." The soil reeked of blood, and even the air seemed heavy with despair. The deer's fragile body quivered, innocence wrapped in fear, as if the forest itself conspired against it. A hawk screamed overhead, and silence followed, unnatural and sharp. Nature's law had spoken before, and it would speak again, without mercy, without hesitation. The air thickened with dread as silence coiled around the clearing. Amelia said, "The forest holds secrets sharper than any blade." Marcus glanced at the trembling deer, muttering, "It knows death comes before we do." Every insect had stilled, every bird muted, as if the world itself feared to draw breath. A gust stirred the canopy, bending shafts of sunlight like broken glass. The deer's fragile steps pressed into damp earth, each one echoing louder than thunder in the silence. Far away, a predator's low growl bled into the stillness, heavy and final. The jungle was not alive, it was waiting, patient as a hunter sharpening its teeth. The jungle pulsed with hidden menace. Marcus whispered, "The air tastes of fear." The deer froze mid-step, eyes locked on shadows where unseen movement slithered closer. Amelia clenched her fists, whispering, "It's not hunting us, yet." The stillness became unbearable, every second stretching like a lifetime. The canopy above swayed, scattering leaves like falling ash. Far beyond, the hawk screamed again, as if signaling the inevitable. The deer's breath came in short bursts, fogging the heavy air. Predators did not need to rush. Death always waited, patient, inevitable, watching from just beyond the light. The jungle's silence cracked. Branches snapped with brutal force, sending birds exploding into the sky. Amelia gasped, "It's here." The deer lurched forward, hooves slipping on damp leaves, eyes wide with terror. Marcus's jaw tightened as he muttered, "No one escapes the first strike." The forest came alive with chaos, leaves flailing, shadows lunging, and the thunder of pursuit pounding like war drums. In that instant, the delicate veil of calm shattered into raw violence. The predator had revealed itself, and the deer's innocence collapsed into panic. The jungle had chosen its sacrifice, and there was no turning back. The chase ignited like fire across dry grass. The deer's fragile body bounded desperately through undergrowth, hooves striking sparks of soil. Amelia shouted, "Run!" though the creature could not hear her. Marcus's voice cut harsh, "It's already lost." Shadows streaked across the ground, snapping closer with every heartbeat. The jungle roared alive, insects fleeing, leaves tearing, air thick with raw panic. The deer's breath rasped, each exhale a scream of survival. Yet the predator moved faster, silent but certain, its presence like a blade against flesh. The jungle did not forgive weakness. It carved stories in blood, and this one had just begun. The chase ended as quickly as it began, silence swallowing the forest once more. The deer collapsed in the shadows, its thin chest heaving, its breath ragged. Marcus whispered, "Fragility is the truest face of life." Amelia crouched low, her eyes locked on the trembling creature. She murmured, "It has no chance, yet it fights." The jungle pressed close around them, oppressive, heavy, as though it waited to see which heartbeat would falter next. The innocence of the deer was unbearable, its legs shaking under the weight of existence. Thor's judgment was cruel, but here lay the anchor, the fragile pulse of survival that demanded empathy before the next storm broke. The deer lifted its head, ears flicking desperately as though searching for mercy. Amelia whispered, "It carries the weight of every fragile soul." Marcus looked away, muttering, "Hope is weakness here." The forest gave no answer, only the sound of distant dripping water breaking the silence. Shafts of sunlight sliced across damp earth, painting the creature in fractured light and shadow. Every quiver of its small body became unbearable to watch, a reminder of how little separated life from death. Amelia reached out, though her hand never touched, as though connection itself was forbidden. The deer blinked once, a tear shimmering like glass, before bowing its head once more. Marcus shifted uneasily, his jaw clenched as though the sight cut deeper than he wished to admit. He said, "This is the face of extinction." Amelia shook her head, whispering, "It is the face of endurance." The deer swayed, barely balanced, yet it stood again, fragile limbs refusing to surrender. The jungle, vast and merciless, seemed smaller in that moment, contained in the fragile body that fought to remain. Insects buzzed faintly, the only sound brave enough to exist here. Every breath of the deer struck like a drumbeat, soft yet defiant. For the first time, Marcus's eyes softened, though his voice remained cold. The canopy whispered with unseen life, but all eyes were fixed on the survivor. Amelia said softly, "Even the weakest heart can defy death." Marcus muttered, "For a moment maybe." The deer stumbled forward, fragile legs scraping roots, yet it moved on. Its breath whistled in broken bursts, each step both agony and defiance. The jungle loomed taller, every tree a silent witness to its struggle. Amelia's hand clenched at her chest, as though her own heart carried the strain. Marcus exhaled sharply, shadows crossing his face. The deer's innocence weighed heavy, its fight carving meaning into the cruelty of the forest. The forest breathed again, leaves rustling softly, as though mocking the fragile triumph. Amelia whispered, "It still stands." Marcus's reply cut like steel, "Standing is not surviving." Yet something had shifted. The deer, once broken, now burned with trembling defiance. Its eyes, wide and glistening, no longer begged, but endured. The jungle pressed harder, but its frailty carried a weight greater than strength. Amelia exhaled, her voice trembling, "If it can fight, so can we." Marcus remained silent, though the tightness in his jaw betrayed him. In that fragile heartbeat, they saw not prey, but a mirror of survival itself. The forest erupted with menace, its silence broken by the guttural growl of something unseen. Marcus muttered, "It closes in faster than we thought." Amelia's eyes darted, her voice cracked, "We're not its only prey." The deer bolted forward, legs fragile and uneven, hooves striking roots with frantic rhythm. Shadows slid through the trees, quicker, hungrier, circling the weak. Branches snapped, sharp as bones breaking, and the air filled with the musk of danger. Amelia pressed forward, her chest heaving, while Marcus's jaw set in stone. "Survival's law is written in fear," he muttered. The jungle pulsed alive, its voice cruel, its judgment absolute. Every sound became a warning, every silence another trap, closing in around them. A snarl ripped through the undergrowth, close enough to rattle the earth beneath their feet. Amelia gasped. "It hunts without hesitation, without pause." Marcus pulled her closer, muttering, "Keep moving, or it will taste our fear." The deer stumbled, crashing through brush, thin body scraped by thorns, its cry sharp and weak. Leaves flailed, and the canopy above darkened as storm clouds rolled in, pressing the jungle into choking gloom. Pursuit thundered behind them, claws striking roots, snapping branches like brittle glass. Amelia's breath faltered, chest tight, her hand clamping Marcus's arm. He shook his head, cold, steady, though his eyes betrayed the truth. "We cannot save it," he whispered, but his silence after spoke louder than his words. The jungle tightened like a snare around them. The deer's breaths rasped, hooves hammering like desperate drums against the roots. Amelia said through clenched teeth, "It refuses to fall, no matter the wound." Marcus's eyes narrowed, his tone edged with steel. "Defiance delays, nothing." Shadows lunged closer, their rhythm violent, snapping branches in jagged bursts. The canopy trembled, scattering leaves like ash drifting from unseen fire. Sweat slicked Amelia's skin, hair clinging to her temples as she pushed forward, refusing to look away. Marcus slowed for a moment, hand brushing the hilt of his blade, though he did not draw it. Fear pressed against them, but tethered to it was a spark, a fragile defiance that refused to die, even beneath the predator's shadow. The first strike came fast, a blur tearing through the leaves, silent but deadly. The deer leapt sideways, narrowly escaping claws that carved bark where it had stood. Amelia screamed, "It's here, Marcus!" Marcus shoved her back, blade flashing in hand, voice sharp as stone, "Stay behind me." The jungle erupted, torn apart by violence, leaves shredded into fragments, dust choking the air. The deer cried out, a piercing sound that echoed like glass shattering. Blood shimmered on the predator's claw, a cruel red glint. Amelia's breath caught in her throat, her body frozen between horror and helplessness. Marcus stood his ground, though the truth burned in his eyes. No steel could turn aside the raw hunger of nature. The deer staggered, blood dripping from a fresh wound across its flank, staining its fragile coat. Amelia's voice cracked, "It's bleeding, Marcus, it won't last." His voice growled low, "The hunt is relentless. Mercy does not exist here." The predator circled unseen but certain, growls vibrating deep into the ground, shaking their bones. The jungle seemed to shrink, pressing them inward, suffocating with dread. The deer staggered again, yet pressed forward, trembling legs still carrying fragile defiance. Amelia whispered, her voice trembling with grief, "It still fights." Tears welled in her eyes, glinting in fractured light. Marcus's lips tightened, eyes betraying a rare respect for its endurance. The forest howled with hunger, but the deer's flame, though fragile, refused to be extinguished. The predator stepped into the light, and the truth cut deeper than its claws. It was not a lone beast, but a mother, ribs sharp, hunger raw, her eyes blazing with the weight of her own brood waiting in a hidden den. Amelia gasped, "She's not hunting for herself." Marcus's voice hardened, though it trembled, "Her fight is no different than ours." The deer froze, trembling, yet its innocence collided with the predator's desperation. The jungle tilted, the rules rewritten. Prey was no longer only prey, and predator no longer only shadow. Every life in the clearing was bound by the same law, survival bought by sacrifice. The jaguar's growl shook the earth, but within it was no cruelty, only need. Amelia whispered, "She's starving, Marcus. She has mouths to feed." The words cut like arrows. Marcus's hand fell from his blade, his voice low, "Every hunter carries chains we cannot see." The deer stumbled back, terror blazing in its fragile eyes, yet the predator did not strike. Instead, she prowled in a circle, torn between mercy and hunger. The jungle seemed to listen, holding its breath, as though judging both mother and prey with the same silent cruelty. Amelia's eyes filled with tears. "They are all victims," she murmured. Thunder rolled overhead, and the canopy quivered. The jaguar's gaze never wavered. Her body coiled with hunger, yet she did not leap. Amelia whispered, "She waits, just as the forest waits." Marcus's jaw tightened, his tone grave, "Hunger decides faster than mercy." The deer's chest rose and fell in ragged bursts, every breath louder than the storm. The jaguar's growl deepened, but in her eyes flickered hesitation, almost sorrow. The jungle, ruthless and eternal, revealed its truth, that even predators suffer chains forged by survival. Amelia's voice broke. "This is not cruelty, it is inheritance." Marcus said nothing, but lowered his gaze in silence. The revelation struck harder than any blow. Amelia whispered, "The hunter is bound to the hunted." Marcus finally spoke, voice heavy with truth. "We fight the same war, Amelia. Only the battlefield changes." The jaguar crouched low, her tail whipping, but instead of striking, she stepped back into shadow, her hunger tearing at her ribs. The deer staggered forward, bleeding but alive, its steps fragile yet defiant. Amelia's breath caught, tears slipping free as her hands trembled. Marcus's stare followed the jaguar, his expression heavy with reluctant respect. Nature had revealed its hidden truth. Predator and prey both lived at the mercy of a law beyond mercy itself. Silence fell, but it was not peace. It was the weight of truth revealed. The deer limped onward, fragile yet unbroken, its innocence carved into endurance. The jaguar vanished into the dark, her hunger unfulfilled, her fate chained to the cries of unseen cubs. Amelia whispered, "Every fight carries a price we cannot see." Marcus's eyes followed the shadows, his voice quiet but unyielding. Survival is never one story. It is all stories colliding. The forest breathed again, leaves trembling as though sharing the secret. In that moment, they understood. The line between hunter and hunted was nothing but a cruel illusion. The storm broke without warning, rain slashing the canopy, turning earth into black rivers. The deer stumbled, hooves slipping, but it forced itself onward. Amelia shouted, "It can't run much longer." Marcus growled, "Neither can we." Lightning split the sky, and for a heartbeat, the jaguar was illuminated, her body lunging through sheets of rain. The deer bolted, fragile legs buckling but refusing collapse. The chase ignited again, primal and merciless. Amelia's pulse raced with terror, her voice trembling. "This is the end." Marcus's eyes narrowed, his blade steady in hand. "No, this is the test." The jungle roared alive with thunder. The jungle became a battlefield. Roots tore beneath hooves, mud swallowed every step, and shadows blurred into chaos. Amelia gasped, "It can't escape forever." Marcus's voice thundered, "Survival is never forever, only moments stolen." The deer staggered but surged forward, blood trailing like a path through the storm. The jaguar slashed at the earth, missing by inches, her snarl echoing over thunder. Amelia's breath shattered in her chest, tears mixing with rain. Marcus stood tall, blade glinting, his jaw carved from stone. "This is nature's trial," he said. The storm was no longer weather. It was judgment. The predator struck again, a blur of muscle and fury. The deer leapt aside, its body grazing claws that tore the air. Amelia cried, "It's too weak." Marcus roared, "Weakness doesn't mean surrender." Lightning blinded them, thunder shattered the sky, and the forest floor shook with their struggle. The deer landed hard, knees buckling, yet it pushed upright, breath ragged, eyes wild with survival. The jaguar prowled, muscles rippling, waiting for the next opening. Amelia pressed a trembling hand to her chest, whispering, "Please." Marcus stepped forward, blade raised, his face pale, his voice cold. "Nature chooses. We only watch." The chase collapsed into raw violence. The deer stumbled, crashing to the ground, mud splattering across its trembling body. Amelia screamed, "No!" The jaguar lunged, but Marcus' blade cut through the storm, intercepting with desperate force. Sparks of steel against claw lit the night. The jaguar recoiled, not defeated, but startled. The deer gasped, struggling to rise, its body refusing surrender. Amelia dragged herself forward, tears streaking her face. "It can't end like this." Marcus's breath came in sharp bursts, his arms shaking under the weight of resistance. Thunder drowned their cries, the storm itself roaring as judge and executioner. Time fractured into heartbeats. The deer rose trembling, legs slick with blood and mud, yet still standing. Amelia's voice cracked, "It refuses to die." Marcus lowered his blade, his eyes fierce, whispering, "Because survival is not strength, it is will." The jaguar stepped back, her breath heaving, her eyes torn with hunger and hesitation. Lightning flared, freezing predator and prey in one shared frame of defiance. Amelia sobbed, her tears lost in the rain. Marcus's voice cut through the storm, low and final. "This is the climax of life's war. Not victory, only endurance." The storm swallowed everything. The storm faded, leaving the jungle drenched in silence, its breath heavy with finality. The deer staggered, body trembling, blood painting the mud beneath its hooves. Amelia whispered, "It still stands." Marcus's gaze remained cold, his words sharp. "Standing does not mean surviving." The jaguar retreated into the shadows, her hunger unfulfilled, her cubs waiting in silence somewhere unseen. Rainwater ran red through roots, carrying the memory of the fight. The jungle did not mourn, did not celebrate, it only existed. Amelia clutched her chest as though her own breath carried the creature's pain. Marcus's eyes softened, only for a fleeting moment, then hardened again. The jungle exhaled smoke and steam, as if purging the violence from its lungs. The deer collapsed, sides heaving, mud clinging to its thin body. Amelia knelt forward, whispering, "Don't give up, not now." Marcus shook his head, voice heavy. The forest does not barter hope. Yet in his stare flickered a crack of doubt. The jaguar's shadow was gone, but her presence lingered like a scar, her hunger echoing in every drop of rain. Amelia reached toward the deer, her hand trembling inches from its frail body, yet still she did not touch. Her tears struck the soil, vanishing into the same earth that drank blood. The jungle felt eternal, and yet fragile in its silence. The deer lifted its head, eyes glazed but unbroken, as if refusing death's invitation. Amelia whispered, "Even now, it fights." Marcus's voice lowered, quiet, conflicted. Perhaps survival is not winning, but resisting loss. The air thickened with the scent of wet earth, of blood, of inevitability. The jaguar was gone, yet her hunger lived in the trembling frame before them. Amelia pressed her forehead to the ground, tears mixing with rain-soaked soil. Marcus turned away, jaw rigid, yet his hand tightened at his side. The jungle stood indifferent, a silent judge to all. The forest shifted, light-piercing clouds, golden streaks slashing through gray. The deer stood once more, fragile, trembling, but alive. Amelia gasped, "It still chooses to rise." Marcus stared, voice deep, "It rises only to fall again." Amelia. The truth was cruel, yet undeniable. Every step it took was defiance written in blood. Amelia wiped her tears, her voice breaking, but defiance is survival, even if it lasts a breath. Marcus turned his face upward, rain dripping from his brow, silence replacing his words. The jungle answered with stillness, its only mercy, the fragile light breaking through. The silence grew sacred, a hymn only nature could write. The deer limped forward, blood marking each step, yet the forest parted to let it pass. Amelia's whisper trembled, "It lives, though broken." Marcus's voice answered like stone, "Survival is always broken." Their eyes followed as the fragile frame disappeared into the trees, carrying its story into the unknown. The jaguar's shadow remained, not as villain, but as truth. Amelia closed her eyes, whispering, "There is no victory here, only endurance." Marcus's silence was heavy, his jaw set, but his eyes betrayed him. The jungle closed again, eternal, unyielding, absolute. Night seeped into the canopy, and the jungle swallowed its scars. Steam lifted from the earth like ghosts abandoning the soil. Amelia said, "We witnessed hunger, wear two faces." Marcus answered, "We witnessed life refuse a third." Somewhere ahead, a fragile step disturbed wet leaves. Somewhere behind, a low breath faded into patient dark. The storm was gone, but its rhythm clung to their chests. They stood without speaking, listening for the next law. A cicada cracked the silence, then surrendered to quiet. Amelia whispered, "Nothing here is evil." Marcus murmured, "Nothing here is spared." The forest smelled of iron, sap, and rain-bent flowers. Their footprints blurred, already reclaimed by slow water. A pool gathered moonlight, a mirror cut into black soil. The deer stepped to the edge, breath trembling over the surface. Amelia said, "It drinks like a prayer." Marcus replied, "Prayers here are debts." The water held two worlds, one above and one drowning below. Leaves ticked the surface like seconds falling into time. Somewhere, a branch sighed, but no attack came. The night listened, heavy and awake. The deer lifted its head and met its own reflection. Amelia's hands unclenched as if pain had ebbed. Marcus lowered his gaze, as if shame had risen. The pool closed over the ripples, and kept their secret. The path bent toward stones, warm from the day's last breath. A low cave opened, edged with clawed roots and dark vines. Marcus said her den. Amelia whispered, her hunger has names. Small sounds answered, thin mules stitched with need. The mother emerged, not triumphant, only tired. She paused where light surrendered, then slipped inside. The cave swallowed her, but not the truth she carried. Amelia pressed her palm to her chest and closed her eyes. Marcus turned away, guarding her silence with his own. The forest did not cheer. It only recorded debts. Night signed the ledger and turned the page. Wind braided scents of wet bark, fungus and crushed leaf. Ants rebuilt roads where thunder had broken them. Amelia said, the forest repairs with the parts of our grief. Marcus answered, it wastes nothing, not even us. A moth tested the air like a scout for dawn. Far off, the deer moved. A faint rhythm stitched to roots. Closer, the den quieted, full bellies and slow breaths. The trees loomed, old judges with longer memories than guilt. The night thinned, and color leaked back into form. They watched the edges soften. They let the verdict stand. Nothing appealed. Everything continued. Dawn unstitched the dark with threads of pale fire. The deer stepped into the new light, a map of wounds and will. Amelia said, it is not healed. Marcus replied, it is here. Birds rewrote the margins where thunder had scrawled. The den stayed quiet. Hunger paid for one more morning. The pool remembered the faces it held and kept them tender. Leaves opened like hands choosing to begin again. Footsteps turned homeward, lighter but not innocent. The jungle breathed, absolute and unchanged. The story thinned to a single strand that would not break. The last truth stood without ornament, clear and cold. Endure,